The following program contains frank language about child sexual exploitation and internet safety. Viewer discretion is advised. IQ Smart Parent is made possible in part by the McCune Foundation and the Grable Foundation.
Welcome to this special edition of IQ Smart Parent. Communications technology hasn't just expanded, it has exploded. To stay safe, young people need to know how to manage their complex digital extension and existence. And over the next hour, we're going to discover with experts steps that you can take right now to keep yourself and your family members safe. You'll also hear stories from survivors of cyber crimes, including my own story as someone who was the victim of revenge porn. And we want to hear from you as well. So we're asking you to please send us your questions and comments through social media, and we'll get them to our experts here in the studio. I'm happy to welcome our first guest, Alicia Kozakevich. Alicia is an international advocate promoting internet and child safety awareness. Alicia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start by talking a little bit about the nonprofit that you started, the Alicia Project, and how that is working and some of the goals that you have.
The Alicia Project promotes child safety awareness and internet safety awareness. We work to fight against human trafficking and child sexual exploitation, as well as advocating for missing, exploited, and recovered persons.
You also are the inspiration and the driving force behind the Alicia Law. So what is that?
So Alicia's Law has passed in 11 states. We're hoping to see it passed in all 50. It's a lot to pass a law, but we're making progress, and it is such an important law. What it does is it helps fund the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Forces, the ICACs, which is very similar to the team that helped to rescue me. Right now, they do not have the funding, they do not have the resources to go out and rescue children who are being sexually exploited online. And these aren't all children who have been abducted. Some of them may have been, but these are children who are being often abused by those who should love, protect, and guide them. So family members, people in their community. And what Alicia's Law does is it provides a dedicated revenue stream. So that money goes straight to the Internet Crimes Against Children Task Forces, and it provides funding, boots on the ground, resources, training, everything that they need to go out and rescue these children.
And that's important work.
It's incredibly.
Most definitely. And that law is named after Alicia for a reason. Here's why.
What's happening in this classroom doesn't seem so unusual.
I'm Alicia, and do you guys know why I'm here?
Until you listen in.
I'm here to save your life.
The students are 5th through 8th graders. The guest speaker, she's 18, invited to talk about this.
Pedophiles know this, and they love to talk about sex with kids.
Some might say it's an advanced curriculum, but not for this Catholic school or the many public schools that keep signing up for Alicia's presentation on internet safety. Alicia wrote the lesson plan.
He groomed me.
She also lived it.
I walked out of my house on the coldest, darkest, iciest night of the year to meet this guy that I thought was my friend. But he turned out to be a monster. So I would say a pretty normal 13-year-old. I had a few friends, and I was close with my family.
A typical family from Crafton Heights, a middle-class suburb of Pittsburgh. Charlie Kozakevich, a successful career selling cars. Mary, a stay-at-home mom. 2 kids, a son, Chuck, and Alicia, 9 years younger, the daughter they'd wanted for so long.
We did family things, and I was normal. I was on the computer a lot, but so was everybody else. That's where all my friends were.
Alicia spent more and more time in the family room, on the computer, the internet, email, webcam. For parents in 2001, it was a whole new language. But kids like Alicia were learning fast, even sharing some of the know-how with mom and dad.
I taught them how to use the computer, and They thought it was really nice that I was doing so much homework. And when she came in, I had homework on the screen.
What Alicia didn't share was how she'd been venturing into internet chat rooms, sharing photos of herself, talking to people of all ages. One of her many online friends was a 38-year-old man.
He just seemed to understand me really well.
And he would soon become her best online friend. They talked every day for months.
Well, you know, if I was having a problem with a paper or something, he'd kind of help me out. It seemed like he knew everything. He became like, I don't want to say a father figure, but a confidant and a best friend, and I guess even a lover in some ways.
The man finally asked to meet Alicia in person. He was driving to Pittsburgh and said he would park about a block away from her home. It was New Year's Day, 2002.
I can't tell you why I walked out that door. I don't know. That's $1 million question. It really is.
Alicia had walked outside on a freezing January night without money, without a coat.
It's actually the outfit I had on when I walked out the door.
Even leaving the door ajar, apparently with every intention of coming right back for dessert.
I just know that once I got near him, something changed, and I realized that this person's a monster.
But now, a 13-year-old girl was in a grown man's car on a highway headed far from home.
At which point it was too late, and people were like, why don't you jump out of the car and stuff. It doesn't work.
And then after half hour, an hour, it dawned on us there was something very wrong here, and we called the police.
You'll never look at things the same again.
Mary and Charlie Kozakevich were understandably mystified and terrified by their daughter's disappearance, but they were about to be blindsided by what led up to it.
Everything changed, every facet of our lives.
I just had a sense that, yeah, my parents are looking for me and that they love me and that they'll find me. And if I just stay alive long enough, I'll be all right. So I need to do what this person says, and maybe he'll keep me alive longer.
Alicia had been taken from her home in Pittsburgh to a townhouse in a suburb of Washington, D.C. Her internet friend locked a dog collar around her neck. From the collar, a chain was bolted to the floor, allowing Alicia enough movement to reach the bathroom and his bed.
He tortured me. He treated me like an animal, a dog. If I refused or if I fight, he might just kill me. I mean, why would he want to keep something around that's just not even good for him? And I basically did whatever I had to survive.
A call came into the FBI from an anonymous caller, and this caller said that he had just viewed an image of a young girl from Pittsburgh.
That anonymous caller turned out to be an unlikely informant. He explained to the FBI that he himself visited bondage and discipline websites. It was there that he'd met someone named Scott, who used the screen name Master for teen slave girls. The informant said Scott talked about his fantasy of finding a young girl, and one day posted a message, "I got one." Scott went on to brag about kidnapping a girl from Pittsburgh. He posted a photo, even called her by name. The informant feared it was all true.
He had left for work, and I was chained to the floor, but I was awakened by this crashing noise on a door downstairs, and I was freaked out until I saw FBI on the back of their jacket, and that's when I felt safe. I'm definitely changed in ways that I couldn't even explain. Heart, mind, body, and soul. It's just, everything has changed. It's like I'm a whole entirely different person. That man did kill that little girl.
Her outreach could be her story, warning children about dangers on the internet.
I figure I got rescued for a reason. It was like a calling, you could say.
After just a few presentations, word spread, and now schools from all over the country are asking for Alicia's program.
That is me. 5 years ago. Does she look like she's doing anything wrong? I made some really stupid mistakes. Because I was just a kid. And we do that a lot, don't we? Yes. Not only am I healing myself in the process of saving other children, if I can save just one from what I went through, it's worth it.
Alicia, you are amazingly brave, and I know this can be still tough to watch. You live this. How does it feel to watch this many years later?
It's definitely not easy to watch that. What I see is a little broken girl. I can see the pain in my eyes, and I can also see myself struggling with the words, struggling with my story, not yet feeling confident to share it, and still being afraid of being scrutinized and blamed, and not having terms like grooming, which is such an important term when it comes to my story, that I thought that this was somebody around my age. This was somebody who understood me, who was a friend, and I trusted him, and that's what grooming is. It's just pretending to be a child's friend, and it's very easy to do online because all kids are looking for that friend.
And you've worked so hard over these years to educate, to advocate, to help other victims, and your life now, though, looks entirely different from that.
It does, and I feel like I look a bit different myself. It does. I am still doing my speaking. It's taken a much more motivational speaking route. It's not just sharing my story, it's motivating people. And I also graduated with my master's degree in forensic psychology. I got married in Pittsburgh recently, and now I am shifting my focus and I'm working on my passion, which is acting. This is my mission, and now I have my passion. And it's my way of stepping out and being so much more than my story, because it's true, we are so much more than our stories. We are not what happens to us. Yes, it's the building blocks, but it's not everything that we are. I am not that 13-year-old girl that I was. It's sort of a rebirth for me. People use the word rebrand, but it's a rebirth in some ways. In fact, I'm going by Alicia Kozak, which is a lot easier to spell, as a sort of solidification of that this is not a new person, but here's the new Alicia.
Absolutely. You survived something and have turned it around, and it become, a wonderful way to show how we can change our lives in spite of that. So I want to turn things over now to Taylor. You have a question from social media.
Yes, this question was submitted by Anya from New York. This is for Alicia. I'm very sorry you went through what you did. I want to tell my daughter about what happened to you, but she is only 9 years old, and I'm afraid it will scare her. How young are the students you talk to about your experience?
Well, thank you so much, Anya. That's a really great question. People often ask me, what are you going to tell these kids? Are you going to scare them too much? Is it going to be age appropriate? And absolutely. When I speak to kids, I've spoken to kids as young as kindergarten, and it's a really bad thing that happened, bad person, and I was rescued by good people. So it's always age appropriate. But when working with your own child and speaking to your own child, you need to start as soon as possible, because their fingers will be on the keyboard, be it virtual or otherwise, very soon, and they need to have the tools when going into that world.
What would you tell parents? There's a lot out here. There's a lot that can be told to them, but if you could sit down on a couch with them and speak to them, what would you say?
There's so much to tell parents, and I fortunately I get to talk to them a lot. But what's so important is that they're parents. I think parents want to be their child's friend more often, and they don't want to upset their child. And you need to learn how to tell your child no, and to set boundaries, and to monitor your child's online activity on the computer, on their cell phone, on their iPad, whatever it may be. You need to pay attention to what they're doing, because you're the parent. And you also need to have an open line of communication, which means that if your child came to you and said, Dad, I sent this picture and it was really inappropriate, and you told me not to do it, but I did it, They don't have to fear punishment, that they're going to have their devices taken away, that it's all about comfort and support and a safe space so that your kid can come to you with anything, because kids go through so much. When I do my presentations, a dozen children come up to me afterwards and they say, this happened to me, or that happened to me, or this is happening to me. They need help, they want help, and they're too afraid to go to their parents.
And it's
Let your
important to
parents
do
know.
that early,
Or-
because
yeah.
the faster you move, particularly on the internet, the more important it is to get any of the content taken
Exactly.
down and be after someone. So thank you for that. What would be the one tip that you would give to young people about managing social media and having a presence online?
There's so many tips, but I think one of the most crucial things is that to realize that these things can happen to you. And it may not be abduction, you may not be kidnapped, it can certainly happen, and it happens a lot. But there's so many other things that you can fall victim to. You can fall victim to cyberbullying, you can fall victim to child sexual exploitation. There's so many things that you need to be careful of. So that you need to know that when you go into this world, it is dangerous, that you need to look both ways before you cross the street, that you need to pay attention to what you're doing, because what you don't know, it can hurt you, and then you know about it.
And what are some of the important things that you do with the Alicia Project?
So I have done quite a few things. One of my favorite things that I do is I work with a group called Airline Ambassadors International, and I get to dress up like a flight attendant and go into airports and train airport personnel, be it on the ground or in the air, to recognize and report the signs of human trafficking. And if you followed the news, there's been quite a few stories of flight attendants who have saved people. We can't just talk about this. We have to do something about it. We have to educate children. Parents have to educate themselves. Teachers have to know, and we have to be aware. We can't push this under the rug. We can't say it's not happening. It is happening, and we have to do so much, and we have so much power to change it. And listening to programs like this and being part of things like this, and to the viewers, thank you for being here, and thank you for listening, and thank you for being proactive.
Yeah, and we want to thank you for always being brave and sharing your story and doing the work that you do and the mission that you have.
Thank you.
It has been tough, as I know, but you have certainly gotten above it, and you helped so many people along the way. So thank you, Alicia.
Thank you.
Coming up, find out just how much personal information predators can find out about you from seemingly innocent social media posts. And the results may probably shock you. But up first, we took our cameras to the streets to hear more about how people manage their social media and their online safety.
I think I have about 180 friends, and I actually know about 80 of them.
1,100, and like the total that I actually know of is probably like maybe 900. So it's not like too bad of like a proportion. I only like add friends who like I know, like I've interacted with or anything like that.
I don't really go out there and just start adding people that I don't have any idea who they are.
I've definitely seen cases, even for me, like someone would friend me with mutual friends, but I would have no idea who they are. Like they're a completely different age than I am, which I think is pretty scary to think that they can find me through my friends, even though I'm on private.
I don't really give out too much personal information, but I do have a private account, and the people that follow me are people that I personally know, so I feel comfortable for the most part.
I'm not that good at social media. People don't really get like my personality in a text message or whatever, so it's really hard for me to like really convey who I am if I write something. So I like to more like be real conservative with it, and then mainly like talk to people in real life and talk to them about like what my ideas are and stuff like that.
You know, there are so many settings that you can do to see who sees what stuff, and generally I keep the more personal things that I put up there just to my immediate family and friend circle that I have.
Kids like to share like what's going on in their lives, but I think we also need to recognize that like if you don't take like the necessary precautions on like, for example, Instagram, making your account private, then like there are people out there that can see your information.
Kids these days are definitely pressured to kind of always post what they're doing every second of the day, especially with stuff like Snapchat. And it's really easy for, say, a stalker or someone to track where they are, especially with like sharing their location.
Basically, you have to think in mind that anyone can see this photo, and is there stuff that I don't want other people to see about me when you're making that conscious decision to post a photo or a link to anything.
It would be hard to imagine growing up in the environment today back in the day. Back in the day, it was all face-to-face kind of stuff. You can kind of deal with that, I think, a little easier. The way bullying can occur today with social media or online or with technology, I think it's a lot more scary than perhaps it once was.
Even when social media was not around, if you see two kids bullying a smaller kid, if someone doesn't say anything, that's a problem. So I think speaking up is also important, and the same thing goes on social media.
Now, children are so exposed to not just bullying from their classmates, but bullying from the whole world, so it's really important for us, to kind of put a, monitor how much internet they consume.
I think it's about coaching rather than being the social media police. I think parents just need to make sure that their kids understand. I think this conversation around social media was never around when I was growing up.
Be aware of what your kids are doing. If they're talking to people they don't know, then explain to them the risks of it. But all in all, I'd say give your kids the freedom. You don't want to mollycoddle them and wrap them in bubble wrap, because otherwise they won't be able to be themselves. But at the same time, just be aware of it.
There's not necessarily a perfect way to completely monitor your child's activity online, just because I feel like that's kind of an infringement of not only the privacy of the kid, but also the privacy of the parents. But I do think there are preventative measures that could be taken by the parents. So as long as they really sit down with that child, have a conversation about what's safe to do online, what's not as safe to do online, then I think that's a better way to kind of control what your kid does as well.
If you use digital and mobile media, then you will probably be shocked at what's at risk every time you make a post. My name is Gina Catanzarite, and I'm with two computer analysts from the Allegheny County Police Department in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So Megan Galloway and Kelsey Meacham, thank you for joining us for this little experiment. And you are demonstrating just how much information you can find about somebody online. In this case, me, starting with nothing more than my name. So I'm a little nervous to see what you found, but let's see from this big report that you provided how you got this.
We just had your name. So we started off with Facebook first. That's usually where we go to because that is the most used social media, and people do the most sharing on Facebook. So look up Gina Catanzarite and you get multiple hits, Pittsburgh, PA, and we can even filter over here saying, oh, we just wanted to search Pittsburgh. And then we can see that you were posted an Illuminati post about here you're tagged, and that's your account. So looking through your account, it is very private, which is a good thing, but your friend list is not.
So I would secure the friends list just as a good rule of thumb. People don't need to see that, it's not necessary. And from this, you can get family members, you can get best friends, any name. So that right there pulls up some of your family members.
And from here, we will go through each of these people that share the same name as you. So we looked at each of these individuals' pages, realizing that Libby is your mother. From here, she does share only 3 images, her profile picture and 2 with her family. Okay, so she's only shared these 3 images. If you click this middle one here, you can see her pictured with 4 young children, and we can see that Gina has commented on that, what a difference a few years make, and also tagged an image with the same kids. Now we know what these young children look like in 2013. And then from there we can see, okay, who are these individuals? We know that these 2 are your sons, Nikita and Sasha, yes? And their 2 cousins, Gianna and Anthony.
And her Instagram is completely open. We were able to scroll through and see this photo of her sibling and her cousins. And we were able to see that they were adopted from Russia.
Yeah, she makes the comment here. We haven't been this far apart since Sasha and Nikita were brought back from Russia. We did not know at this time that both of your sons were adopted. But now we know that they weren't only adopted, but their origin country.
And I mean, this is a really fun photo. It shows that they're all going to different colleges and it's an exciting time in their lives, but we now see exactly where they're going.
So using other open source information, we found the name Shapiro. your son's name took your husband's name. And from there, we were able to make that connection. So now we have not only Gina Catanzarite to search for on open source, we now have Gina Catanzarite Shapiro to search for, which will result in more hits.
So we'll try this one out. Looks like maybe a little bit more content. There's a profile photo there. So, and we did later find out that this is your husband. See, here's a family photo right here. It shows.
This is the confirmation photo and comments that verified, yes, this is your husband, yes, these are your children.
Yeah, and that's another thing too, the comment section. We get a lot of information from comment sections.
All the comments that are attached with it are also public. So even though if you posted this on your page, because you are set at like a different privacy, we wouldn't be able to see any of this. But because the one photo was posted publicly, now I can see that, yes, you have verified this is your family.
I mean, that's a perfect example of how just little pieces of information, we just puzzle them together and we get this picture of your family and intimate details about your life. So we know from experience that this is how bad people do it too. Unfortunately, they use these same techniques. We were able to tell all this information about these, about your life, and it all originated from typing in your name in Facebook.
Well, I never would have thought about how much you could have found out about me from innocuous comments.
So say I was an online predator, a sexual predator, and your son just happened to be my type. I could use the information from you. I found out where you lived. Now I know where your son lives. I can see what school he goes to. I can see his interests.
If your son posted a photo in his bedroom, we could pinpoint where that bedroom is. A predator could use that.
How else can innocent pictures be used against the child or the family?
So we've actually seen specific examples where a parent will innocently share a photo on vacation, like a 2-year-old at a beach, you know, in their cute little bikinis, and we've actually seen where pedophiles will take that image and share that among their friend groups, which are other pedophiles, and it's really like what would you say?
Sexualized.
Yeah. Oh yes, incredibly. Horrible comments that no parent would want anybody to say about their child, and they don't even know that this is happening. They just post it innocently, and it's used by awful people to awful ends.
Again, it comes down to settings and your privacy and who you allow to see these things. Know that when you do start a new account, that these are defaulted for anybody to see them. So as soon as you start a new account or go into your existing account, you can make sure that you are private and only certain people are seeing your things.
And I think what's really eye-opening for me is not only are those rules for my kids that I'm telling them, apparently they're rules I need to follow too.
Correct, yes.
Megan Galloway and Kelsey Meacham of the Allegheny County Police, thank you so much for being part of this experiment.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Darieth, back to you in the studio.
All right, Gina, thank you. Today's young people were brought up in the age of technology, and research shows these digital natives don't really make a distinction between their in-person lives and their online identities. Our next guests are here to talk about the legal consequences these digital natives face when they engage in risky online behaviors. Let's welcome Detective Stephen Dish and the Allegheny County Police analyst that we just met in the video you just saw there, Kelsey and Megan. Thanks so much for being here now in the studio with us. So we know that online predators exist. We understand how cyberbullying works, but what happens when kids are taking their own photos and they're sharing them in something called sexting? What is it and how alarming is this right now?
Sexting is the sending or receiving of sexually explicit content, either through chat sessions or sending or receiving videos or images.
Yeah, and at this point, we're seeing more of this happening.
It is. I think today's technology just makes it so much easier for children to do this and almost kind of hide behind technology.
Yeah, so this is pretty alarming. We've got some stats that we want to share. Now, one study says that nearly 40% of all teens have posted or sent sexually suggestive messages. And 55% of teens in that survey said they share sexting messages they receive with more than one person. But new sexting laws can have some very serious legal consequences for kids under the age of 16. How so?
Well, a person 16 years old could be charged if they are sending or receiving nude images or videos back and forth. In Allegheny County, typically a person under the age of 11 will not be charged, but someone older than 11, if they're continually sending these images and videos, they could be charged. It's a summary offense for a juvenile, but they have a criminal record.
And so charges, what does that look like? So we're more serious about what this is. It's not just charges, it could seriously impact them.
It could. And it could go to the next level. If there's an 18-year-old high school student who has a 16 or 17-year-old girlfriend or boyfriend, and the 16 or 17-year-old sends the images to the 18-year-old, and that's found on their devices, they could be charged with child pornography.
They're engaging in this behavior without really understanding what those consequences are. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I want to take a question from social media. Zach, you've got something? Take it away.
Well, this is submitted from Janice from Illinois. What should I do if I find porn or sex messages on my child's phone? Are parents legally responsible for that?
Who wants to take it?
First of all, what you don't do is you don't send it from your child's device to the adult's device. We've had numerous cases where they believe if they send it from the child's device in their adult device, then they can delete it from the child's device. Once they send it, they're engaging in sending child pornography. They should preserve it, save it, put any device they can into airplane mode, and contact authorities.
Yeah, and so Kelsey, I know you were getting ready to chime in. Megan, you too, so why don't you share with us your thoughts on that?
So with that, don't panic. We recommend that you gather evidence, so taking screenshots, save communications.
But it is important to not try to send those messages or content to your phone because, as Dish was saying, that is distribution of child pornography.
So what would you suggest would be the best way then?
Take those screenshots and then hand them over to authorities. Just hand the device over.
And something that parents can tell their children is not making them feel at fault. Let them know that it's not proper behavior and it was not their fault in the first place, and then they can go from there.
So when you're researching, what in your mind would be the best possible way that someone could give you information and get the ball rolling?
We love screenshots. It's really the best. It preserves exactly what they saw. Screen names and exact content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it's tendency of parents to want to delete things off devices or off accounts, off instant messaging or Snapchat or any other device. Don't delete anything. Leave the evidence on the device so that we can then investigate and attempt to see who's sending these things to their child.
Be sure to save everything.
Yes, but don't send it.
But don't send it.
Don't send it.
Save it, don't send it. Call if they need to, right?
Yes.
Get the work that they need to do. And bring the entire device in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great information to know. So what is, if you've had a chance to identify the typical behavior of a predator, who is this person? What do they look like? How do you identify them?
So oftentimes we do get this question from the public because they want to know, is there a certain set of characteristics, demographics, or other variables that are setting these predators apart from the general public? Research has shown this is not the case, and that's just not realistic. These predators are of every wake of life, every income, demographic, area, age, sex, and even though all of these people are labeled as sex offenders, the only things that they actually have in common is that they prefer sexual behavior towards children, and it's unhealthy.
We want to take a question now from someone in our studio audience.
While chatting, how would you spot a pedophile? Like, what things would you be on the lookout for?
That's a great question. How would you spot a pedophile in chatting?
So there are certain red flags that young people should be looking out for. If somebody is trying to get personal information from you, including like age, sex, location, or asking for the exchange of photos, or asking you to meet in person, this is probably not normal behavior, and you should probably tell an adult.
Are there some red flags that present themselves that people, if we could maybe knock out 3 or 4 of them, that would be good indicators that this person might be out to intend harm against someone else?
Right, so a lot of times something that sexual offenders do, they know how to talk to these young people. They give them compliments, and this is something that we call grooming. And as soon as they start to ask you, where are you from, what kind of movies do you like, or who do you hang out with, they are getting information from you. And it's not, they want you to feel special, they want you to feel like they're the only person that's talking to you. Most of the time, they are talking to anybody who's going to be giving them this information. And as soon as they start to ask for, photos or try to send you photos, that's time to know that that is not normal.
That's a big red flag.
We like to say too that at any point in the conversation, if the child feels uncomfortable, that's when they should bring it up.
But they should have a great relationship with their parents so that they can bring it to them and not feel some sense of, fear around doing that.
And it's important too, when the parents do talk to the children about it, don't make them feel like it's their fault or that they're going to get in trouble.
Yeah, definitely. So we want to turn things back to Royce, who now has a question from social media.
Yeah, this question was submitted by Kathleen. She's a mother from Pennsylvania. She wants to know, how important is it for parents to know their child's password for their social media accounts and check those accounts regularly?
I say that's very important. As a parent, you need to know everything that your child's doing. It is not an invasion of privacy. You're trying to protect your child. So setting very strict guidelines for your child using these devices, you can make sure that the Wi-Fi is turned off at certain times, or ask your child to see their accounts, know what they're doing online, what kind of applications they're using, and what kind of chat rooms they're visiting.
Yeah. So, Steve, I want to go back and talk about these consequences we talked about earlier. And there's a big difference here between sexting laws and the behaviors of a sexual predator who's behaving in this. Let's talk about the difference. Sexual solicitation.
So it's important to know that, first of all, sometimes a child may think they're chatting with another child, and it's actually an adult who has disguised himself as a child.
That's called catfishing, correct?
That's correct. And creating fake accounts. The laws for adults with the enticement, if a child is chatting with somebody they know and they're chatting back and forth and they may make the mistake of sending pictures back and forth, that's more sexting. Enticement is more of a person they don't know who it really is, they've never met that person, and this person then starts grooming them, getting them to trust them, and like the girls just mentioned, they start asking, hey, send a picture of your smile. Hey, let me see what clothes you're wearing today. And then they progress to where the child is eventually sending nude images.
And so what are the consequences for an adult behaving in this way? Because we talked about what the kids could face, but what about the adults?
So anyone over the age of 18, 18 and over, will face criminal court in adult court. And they're felonies. They're on your record. They stay on your record forever. And in most cases, the adult will then have to register as a sex offender.
Which, of course, has many more consequences. We want to turn back to our studio audience and a young lady who's got a great question for us.
So even with a private account, people can still text you, and how do you stop them before, it gets too late?
Good question.
So making sure with online, you don't have to trust these people, but you do have to verify who they are. So you can go into your privacy settings on any application, and if you feel uncomfortable by this person, you can block them.
And as a parent, feel free to go in and change those settings on your own.
Yeah,
and really monitor that.
So if a person says, well, I don't know how to do that, where can they turn to understand this process?
I mean, you could do the Facebook Help Center or any social media that you're using or any application that you're using. There's always help available, or the power of Google.
I think it's important, we talked briefly, parents do need to set boundaries, and they do need to know the passwords, and they do need to know, is my child locking themselves in the bedroom at night and not letting me know what they're doing? Are they constantly clicking off a screen when I walk into the room? That kind of behavior. The parent can set up boundaries on the devices themselves. They can go on and set up boundaries that the children don't have control over.
Yeah, and then they've paid for the phone, so they certainly have the wherewithal to decide what happens with it.
That's correct. It's the adult's device typically, and more than likely it's the adult's account that they're paying for.
Yeah, I want to turn back to this issue of using takedown services. There's a variety of them out there, but there's one in particular that's offered for children through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. How does that service work?
So, Derry, as recent as about 6 months ago, if a person came to us and said, I'm 22, when I was 14, 15, or 16, I sent images to somebody and they sent them, and it got online. And I'm seeing my images online. As recent as 6 months ago, there was nothing that you could do about it. It was very difficult. The National Center for Missing and Exploited Children has started a new initiative, and if every image online has what's known as a hash value, and that's a fingerprint of the image. So a person who's 22 can go online to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. It's all self-explanatory. They can file a report and say, my pictures are showing up on these websites. I was 14 at the time. Can you please remove these images? And there's a process that they can now go through. And I think it's only going to get better.
Yeah, well, that's much needed work, particularly since so many people don't know what to do. So turning to them would be great. Thank you so much for being here and sharing this really great information with us this afternoon. And I also want to remind viewers that you can still submit your questions through social media. But right now we're going to hear another victim story, my own. I was the victim of revenge porn, and I'm sharing my story in hopes of helping others understand this growing epidemic and help them to find their everyday courage.
Non-consensual pornography means someone is distributing intimate pictures or video without the permission of the person in those images. And IQ Smart Parent host Dareth Chisholm is a victim of it.
A former ex-boyfriend who I'd been in a relationship with and ended called me and threatened my life. Within a matter of weeks, he started texting me photos and videos of me naked. And you can see that I was sleeping. This is without my consent, without my knowledge. But it leaves you in such a very vulnerable and shameful place, especially when this is done without your consent, without your knowledge, and from someone that you have a relationship with, that you trusted and loved. But he was using this as a way to exact revenge on me because I didn't want to return to the relationship.
That's why some types of non-consensual pornography are also referred to as revenge porn. One study shows 60% of victims knew the perpetrator in person before the threats began. The remaining 40% met the perpetrator online.
This is someone who sent me text messages daily telling me, I'm going to put up this 50-second video. What do you think people are going to say when they see this about you? And ultimately, he took all of those photos and videos and put up a website and started calling some of my former clients and family and friends and walked them to the website for them to see me there naked.
Non-consensual pornography is a problem across many digital and mobile platforms. One study uncovered these statistics. From video sharing sites to social networks and even gaming platforms, perpetrators are spreading revenge porn, and 45% of the victims reported experiencing problems on more than one platform. And once those images are released, it leaves victims with one crucial question.
How do I get this removed?
But reporting revenge porn and getting the images removed from the web is still a complex issue. According to the advocacy group Cyber Civil Rights Initiative, no federal law has been established regarding non-consensual pornography. To date, 38 states plus the District of Columbia do have revenge porn laws. The problem is that, in general, each state's statute is different in classifying what exactly is against the law. If you are a victim of non-consensual pornography, experts recommend making sure the post in question is against a platform's policy. Search its personal information policy for specifics, and if the post does violate the platform's policies, the next step is to make sure the material is removed. That usually requires obtaining something called a DMCA takedown notice. DMCA stands for the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, legislation passed in 1998 to protect a person from illegally published or distributed content.
How do you get it off is a big challenge because, as most things happen on the internet, things move very quickly. Technology companies are often telling people, go get a court order and submit it to us. Court orders take a lot of money and a lot of time. I fortunately used a takedown service that within the matter of a couple of days was able to get the website shut down, and we were able to scrub the internet and pull the photos off.
A takedown service is a company that will manage the DMCA notice and content removal process for you for a fee. Learn more by searching DMCA Takedown Service or DMCA Takedown Companies.
It is very tough to step forward and speak out because I know that sense of feeling ashamed and raped and silenced in an act that in many cases you're not responsible for.
Darieth has one final piece of advice for young people about protecting themselves against revenge porn.
You know, sexting and texting and sharing nude photos and images has become very commonplace these days. But what I would say to people is that you need to be extremely careful in the release of that, because even if you trust someone and you've consented to giving them that information, they may, when the relationship is over, when they're angry, or if your phone is stolen or their phone is stolen, that information is out there. So they could easily use it, or someone else could easily disseminate that information and take advantage of you in this way. So the best way to protect yourself, in my opinion, is to not take photos or not have images or content on your devices that can ultimately be harmful for you. So I can tell you that sharing these details of my life certainly hasn't been easy, but I believe speaking up and seeking help is the first step to reclaiming your dignity. And if you are a victim of revenge porn, I hope that you will seek help so that you can start the healing process as well. So in continuing our conversation about keeping kids safe online, Detective Steve Dish is still with us, and I'm also happy to welcome Dina Horitas Samites, Director of Carnegie Mellon University's Information Networking Institute, which among other things offers resources to help children learn about cyber safety. So we've talked about cases of adults and revenge porn, we've talked about cyberbullying and harassment among teens, but when we talk about younger children, at what point should adults or parents begin to talk with their young kids about cyber safety?
Today, children are starting to go online, even much younger than they did in the past. And it's very important to start having the conversation and making the distinction between the real world and the online world. Just as we give them guidance about going out and looking both ways before they cross the street, we have to give them similar guidance about what they do online.
And that's so very important, no matter at what age, just getting there at an age that is important to them.
Yeah, we have the opportunity to mold their behavior at a young age. When they get older, it's about modifying their behavior, and that could be a lot more challenging.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but we want to take a question now from the audience.
So if you receive something inappropriate from someone you know that you interact with on a daily, what would you do to tell them to stop doing that to you?
I'll take that. So I think it's very important to have a frank conversation with them and say that you did not appreciate whatever they communicated to you or sent to you, and that it was inappropriate. And I think you need to feel comfortable to reach out to an adult, whether it's your parent, your older brother or sister, or a teacher, to let them know what's happened, and they can provide you with ongoing guidance about that situation. But I think you really shouldn't be keeping it to yourself. You should be reaching for the guidance of an adult.
Most certainly. So our social media questions continue to come in, and if you'll share your next question.
This one comes from Laura from Virginia. If young people want to use media for social activism, what do you recommend is the safest way to do that? I want my child to be socially conscientious and active, but I also don't want to risk her privacy or safety by exposing her to haters or predators online.
Great question, Alex.
Yeah, well, we're seeing this happen very frequently in this climate, with the Me Too movement as well as the gun control conversations. A lot of young people are becoming more active, and we want to encourage that activism, the expression of their views. But it's important as young people, again, to protect their personally identifiable information, their image, their full name, or any other personal information that somebody can identify them. Because the conversations are so loaded that they fall risk to being harassed online, haters are out there that would like to identify them, and children have actually experienced death threats for their views. So they really need to protect their identities and set their privacy settings accordingly as well.
Steve, would you like to weigh in on that and add to that?
Sure, I would just say on the internet is a great thing. However, sometimes bad things occur, and when people start feeling hated or bullying or threatened, they should block these people. They should report something. We've seen tragedies occur from somebody who was bullied online and critiqued online for things that they've said. It's affected children's self-esteem and their ability to even sometimes go to school and face other people.
So Taylor's got another question for us from social media.
Yes, Allison, a college student here in Pittsburgh, asks, how can parents teach their children about the dangers of the internet if they themselves don't necessarily understand the dangers and how rapidly technology changes?
Well, I think it's very important for parents to take the initiative to learn about these tools that are available online. Every time my kids would adopt a new social media app, I would ask them about it. I asked them to show me how to use it. My daughter's here, she's 21, but over the years, you know, she would find these apps long before I did. And I asked her to guide me through it. And I create an account and I communicate with her. And she knows that, in fact, I can see everything that she's doing. And studies suggest that when children know that their parents are online, that they are a little more conservative about their behaviors and they don't take risks as much. So just by being online, you're preventing some of these risks to your children.
Well, and the other thing we need to talk about is just how your behavior online and anything that's going on in terms of the post can ultimately affect you as you go for a job or fill out a job application, and those jobs are searching for you online.
Yes. And this is something that young people don't necessarily think about. When you're 13 years old or 14 years old, you're sharing information about the party that you went to, about the fun you had with your friends, and you're not thinking about the fact that when you post that information, that it's out there forever. So when you apply for college when you're 17, admissions counselors actually can go and see this information. And we know, studies suggest that at least 35% of admissions counselors actually do Google candidates, prospective students, candidates for scholarship. And many times they don't like what they see because it's not consistent with what's in the student application.
Yeah, and we're talking about college, but then of course going into your adult years and applying for a job, it's just as significant.
Just as significant, and even more so. We know that some corporations actually have somebody in HR who goes out and scouts information of prospective job candidates. And the numbers are pretty high. It's like 80% of employers actually do this as one of the steps in the process.
Very serious stuff. Let's turn to the audience now with another question.
If someone you know and trust starts sending you inappropriate text messages or images, what should you do?
So I think you immediately need to tell an adult. And again, it's a person you trust. If it could be your parent, it could be a teacher, it could be a counselor, it could be another adult friend that you, a cousin or an aunt or an uncle where you have a great relationship. But like Dina said, you should not hold it in. You should not keep that to yourself. It's inappropriate, it's uncalled for, and it shouldn't be tolerated.
But there is, kids and adults face this issue of, I'm going to be judged, I would be humiliated, I feel ashamed, I feel embarrassed about all of this. And so that typically leads people to not want to talk about it or turn to someone. How would you suggest that a person gets over that heavy emotions, which are shame and perhaps guilt and embarrassment, and talk with someone?
Well, I think that's why it's important for parents to develop that relationship with their child, that trust relationship, and engage in a dialogue with them from a very young age and talk about what they're doing online. And when they do something wrong, or if they've posted something inappropriate, have a discussion about it, about the consequences, and be there to guide them through the process, not punish them or restrict them. But we want children to develop critical thinking skills, because we're not always going to be there to protect them. And we want them to have that knowledge and the skills to think about what steps they need to take to get out of this bind.
Great information. Royce, you've got another question for us from social media.
Yes, Courtney, a Penn State student, asked via Facebook using our hashtag IQ Cyber Safety, what can schools do to prevent cyberbullying? They say they have no control over it because it happens at home, but a majority of the bullying starts at school and then is brought home to cyber networks.
So I have a very personal story about this. My daughter, whom I've already mentioned, who's turning 21, when she was in 7th grade, she was a victim of cyberbullying. And this was at the same time where I was developing materials for parents and teachers to help educate them about steps that they can take to protect their children or their students when they are being cyberbullied. And for me, it was very difficult because I was looking at the studies and what the research suggests. But as a parent, when you're emotionally entangled in this is your child, the child that you love, you have to take away that emotion and deal with the evidence-based steps to protect your children.
Great point there. I want to ask you, as we're getting close to wrapping up, to give to us any final thoughts that you have on this.
Well, I think the dialogue is very important. And I have 3 adult children, and they are digital natives. And from a very young age, I always had conversations with them. I always made myself available, and I never took things away from them when they made a mistake. Instead, we talked about how can we fix this problem. And I think that's key to, again, instilling within them the critical thinking skills where they stay with them for the rest of their lives to make decisions.
And that's a very good point, because this is about them making good decisions, and you need those critical thinking skills in order to do that. And parents are the first place to help their children. Steve, your final thoughts, please.
Sure. On the task force that I work on, we have a saying, we say kids are going to make mistakes. But when a kid makes a mistake online, they're making a mistake in an adult world.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both for being here and sharing such great information. We also, of course, want to thank our studio audience and our team who's been taking questions from you, from social media. And we also want to thank you for being here right along with us. We have only touched the tip of the iceberg when it comes to cyber safety. So be sure to visit us online for more information and links to crucial resources to help parents protect their kids and to help kids protect themselves. For IQ Smart Parent, I'm Darieth Chisholm. Thanks for joining us.
Want to learn more about IQ Smart Parent? Visit us online at iqsmartparent.org for more episodes and additional tools and resources. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest to share your thoughts on being a 21st century parent. IQ Smart Parent is made possible in part by the McCune Foundation and the Grable Foundation.